My best friend is called Felix. I met him when I was 16. We were both long-haired hard rockers. We were into beer and we were into Iron Maiden, so we bonded. And Felix has a huge tattoo of the skyline of Amsterdam across his whole chest and both of his arms. But you can't see it when he wears a dress shirt or a suit. And Felix is someone you can call in a crisis situation, and he'll come and help, but not without mocking you relentlessly. He's also the only person I know that still converts euros back to guilders in his head. And Felix can push himself so hard. When he wants to achieve something, he writes down all the steps in between and starts to take them, no matter what happens. And just between you and me, he can be stubborn as hell. But it's the same stubbornness he's had to depend on for all of his life, because he never got anything in life for free. It's stubbornness that took him from growing up in a difficult part of Amsterdam to where he is now, the managerial position in a finance department, the salary, the Tesla, the nice office. And back in 2022, Felix was trying to combine the responsibilities of 3 different full-time jobs into one work life. And I have never seen anyone work as hard. Get up at 6 to talk to the Asia team, sure. Need this document first thing tomorrow. I will work late. Need me to respond to emails during meetings. Okay, I can multitask. And with every step he took, they just gave him more to do. Until one day, even for Felix, the stress just became too much. And Felix has been home now for about 8 months. He's doing well, although he still hasn't really fully recovered yet. But I can again see the old Felix I've had all of these adventures with. He's sure of one thing though, he is not going back. And I remember times in my career when I felt a bit like Felix. And I'm sure you've had those moments too. For me, it was months where work was never not on my mind. Weeks I had to scramble to meet all of these demands. People were depending on me and I couldn't let them down now, could I? But all of these interesting things I was doing kept me up late, losing sleep. And if I'm honest, my work ethic was eating away at my health, making me unhappy and a less pleasant person to be around. Today, though, I basically have the best job on the planet. As a psychologist, I get to write and speak about mental health all of the time. And I get to meet loads of people, and they tell me what's on their mind. And a thing that comes up a lot is stress. And through my work, I get to meet teachers and lawyers and care workers and students and entrepreneurs and managers and CEOs. And they all have a story. And I get to listen. And here are a couple of the things that I've learned. We are crazy busy. Our days are filled up to the brim with news updates and emails and notifications. And at work, we strive to be the best versions of ourselves. And on top of that, we're blasted with emails, notifications, news updates that keep us occupied and alert for every waking hour and awake for even more hours. And being a bit busy, of course, isn't necessarily a problem. In fact, a bit of stress can actually be good for you. Stress is just the way that your body and your mind reacts to a situation that needs your undivided attention. Whether that's nearly avoiding an accident while cycling through Amsterdam or giving a very important presentation. It's just something that happens, and you shouldn't be too afraid of stress. In fact, you often need a bit of stress to get you going. Chronic stress, though, that's the stress you stay in for longer periods of time, the stress you don't really recover from. That's the stress that leads to motivation issues, health problems, and eventually even burnout. Stress is universal, I've learned. From the boardroom to the garbage facility, virtually everyone has to deal with stress in some way. For some, that's merely a minor inconvenience. For some, it's a daily challenge to keep up with all demands from work and from home. And some, like Felix, burnout. And we are in a burnout epidemic. An epidemic is a big word, even controversial, I know, but I do use it consciously. In my country, in the Netherlands, 1 in 7 workers reports having to deal with so much stress that they essentially, it becomes dangerous for them. It becomes unhealthy. And in some sectors, like education and healthcare, that's not 1 in 7, that is 1 in 5. And people who burn out sustain so much stress for such a long time that they essentially break down. And they have to recover, often from months at a time. And if that hasn't been you, you surely know at least a couple of people who went through that. And while these numbers may vary from country to country, and this is also due to different ways of defining burnout, this is a global phenomenon. And we still treat stress and burnout as individual problems. And in part, of course, that's true. Some people are just a bit more vulnerable to stress than other people because of their individual psychological makeup or because of something bad that happened to them in the past. Because of a mismatch between the job that they're doing and the talents that they have, or because they're dealing with all kinds of stuff in their private lives, divorce, disease, financial hardship, in addition to the stress from work. And all of that may be true, and it partly explains why some people burn out and others don't. But there's this crucial thing we forget. This is the thing I think we get wrong about stress. It is also a work problem. As much as we individualize the problem, people do also get sick from their environments. And as we spend a huge portion of our time at our jobs, our mental health is also thoroughly affected by our work environment. Work environments that in our time, regretfully, often make us ill. The productivity culture within organizations can be toxic. Productivity is great. It's our contribution to the world. It's also what we're paid for. But there comes a point when productivity culture becomes damaging. So when is a work environment toxic? Well, when people feel they have to be responsive 24/7, and emailing at nights and in weekends is encouraged, if not expected. Environments where people are pushed to come in early, stay late, skip their breaks in order to finish that one little project that just must be done today. Work environments where talking about stress is taboo and tall tales about all-nighters are considered virtuous. And this is what I worry about. We are creating environments, work environments that are toxic, in which people are treated as productivity machines, monitoring their inputs and their outputs, and not like human beings. And here's the thing, it's incredibly difficult to remain healthy in an unhealthy work environment. You can be as resilient as you can be. You can have a stable foundation. You can be brimming with self-confidence and still be negatively affected by a toxic work environment. And it doesn't have to be this way. There are plenty of organizational interventions that we know of that work wonders. Shorter working days, switching off phones and emails after hours, installing better support systems for employees, allowing for mental health days, creating a culture of compassion and meaning, leaders speaking up about their own mental health challenges, and of course, increasing awareness and knowledge about stress and burnout within the organization. And just in case you might be worried about this, let me take that persistent misunderstanding out of the way once and for all. No, burnouts don't spread just by talking about them. We need environments that are less toxic and more human. And this is not only for purely philanthropic reasons either. After all research points to this. Healthy workers are happy, and happier workers produce better results. It's as simple as that. We need a human revolution in the workplace. We need to take mental health far more seriously for Catherine, for Ishmael, for Michael, for Alice, and for Felix. Because he should have his talent and ambition work for him instead of used against him. We need to take mental health more serious than we do. And of course, that's a task for our leaders. And in my experience, leaders in companies are either part of the problem or part of the solution. So let me talk to them for a second. Yes, it's about the culture that you install. And yes, it's about the example that you give. So here's a question for you. How can you make your culture more human, your employees more resilient, and your company a healthier place to work? What's the very first thing you can change immediately? And it's not only about our leaders, it's also for the rest of us. We do all have a role to play in this. We can either conform to the norms or we can reject them. Together, we decide what is normal. We can change the conversation, we can vote for legislation, and we can vote with our feet. We can decide what kind of companies to work for. The kind that exploits us, or the kind in which we're allowed to grow. When we all decide to do so, we can change the story. And if you're listening to this and you happen to be struggling yourself, here's the thing you can do. Take a breath. Experience the air that you are breathing. Look at the people that are sitting beside you. Feel what you are feeling. Allow yourself to be human. And let that be your superpower.